Anybody who knows me detailed knows I don't use the word friend very lightly. I've got a dear friend on the episode today, somebody that I deeply respect, somebody who is a wealth of knowledge. And let me tell you, if you have already achieved DecaMillionaire status, this is a man and his company that you need to know. So friends, have you ever met somebody and whenever you meet them for the first time, you just know that they are a wealth of knowledge and they have this burning desire to change people's lives? Joe Strazzeri joins me today. How are you, my friend?
Good day, Justin. I'm doing really well. How are you today?
Buddy, I'm blessed. Too blessed to be depressed, as you know.
I think we both suffer from the same things. We married up. We were lucky enough to find great mentors in business. We've got fabulous kids and we have faith. For all those reasons, we have good days.
Absolutely. Well, Joe, I know you, but for the sake of the audience, what's a quick 1-2 minute introduction to who Joe Strazzeri is? How did you reach this point of your life where you now serve DecaMillionaires and very affluent business owners? And give me an introduction on who this individual is, this Joe guy that we're talking to.
My kind of Justin story would be, I'm a general contractor by trade. I hammer nails to go to law school. So I've had a couple of careers before. I didn't become an attorney, a tax attorney, until I was 30 years old. So I built and sold 2 companies in my 20s, one since. I found a great business partner 30 years ago in Steve Mancini, hence the Strazzeri Mancini name. Through that time, we found that we both came from entrepreneurial families and we loved the entrepreneurial client. So 75% of our revenue is the $20 to $200 million net worth client that achieved their wealth primarily either through real estate or through owning a business or through both. And they're just the salt of the earth, backbone of the country that creates all the jobs and makes us work. And they're the kind of client that we love working with. Within that, Steve and I own 6 brands, a valuation firm only for our clients, a CXO firm in case there's an emergency in one of our clients' businesses, they need a 30-day help, a criminal law firm because affluent grandchildren get in trouble more than you want to know, and some white collar stuff. But the 3 brands that we're known for are the Institute, Southern California Institute, which I've put on over 200 programs a year on legal, financial, and tax technical to the trades. Founders Group, which is a business succession firm, been around 25 years like the Institute. And then our law firm close to 30 years that helps successful families and business owners get to the heart of highly relevant matters and resolve messes in 3 areas: integrated tax, estate, and asset protection planning, business succession, and then family business conflict. So that's 2 minutes you'll never get back in your life, Justin.
All that to say, my friend knows what he's talking about. And I've seen him in meetings, watched him firsthand, watched his team in action. And ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to have my buddy Joe on the show today. So Joe, we're going to dive into what makes mentally somebody achieve, or what do they have possessed within their person that allows them to achieve a status so much higher than the average business owner? What do you see in their mind that they're processing?
It's funny because my son's about to graduate law school and we're talking about what he's doing and what roles and all these other things. And we talk to clients like this. First and foremost, I see entrepreneurs as servant leaders. They are doing for others. They are not usually running towards wealth. They're running away from something, running away from poverty, running away from having less, running away from not being able to take care of their family. Their mindset is about taking care of others, and they're highly driven. However, that mindset alone won't get you there, and hard work alone won't get you there. There is a moment in time that a business owner realizes that it is not about running a business that pays for all the things around me and I dump it all back in, but something else has to go on. And they hit a moment and they say, wait a minute, and we call it the 4 motives for assets. Motive number 1, take care of my family. That's their biggest one. Motive number 2 that they graduate into by accident or on purpose, have extra income beyond what I take care of my family to be able to buy passive income assets. Like the side bucket needs to be as bigger than the business. And that's once you feel really secure. The third goal that they reach later in life is every asset I have must grow in value. And then they suddenly realize, oh, my business is supposed to take care of my family, provide extra income to buy passive income assets. Oh, and it's supposed to grow in value. And then lastly, their assets are supposed to be protected from lawsuits and taxation. And taxation is the thing that is the biggest drag on the asset. When they realize those things, they jump from making a good living to achieving wealth outside and inside the business. And now you're reaching DecaMillionaire status.
So, Joe, whenever you talk about those 4 areas, I'm always intrigued about the timing around those areas. I know there's probably no hard and fast rule that somebody, works for 5 years and they actually move from point one to point two. But where do you see the time in business when this business owner has that aha, that epiphany moment that you just mentioned?
I don't know that they have the aha. My hope is that they have a friend that they get in a golf cart next to, they're fishing next to, they're sitting at the back of the room at some party wishing that they weren't there, but talking to somebody because they love this so much. And within that, they then get the hint. Usually, though, their business starts to generate so much cash that they have more than they need. They can't put it all back in, and they want to know, where do I put it? And I would say most of them end up dumping it in real estate because it's safe, steady investment. And they start to realize this real estate, wait a minute, I bought this thing, I put a couple $100,000 into it, and it went in this value to that value. My equity went from $200,000 to $400,000. How'd that happen? And they get very curious about that growth in equity value in the real estate, and they get the real estate bug. That's usually the first thing that happens. But then at some point, they always know that they should pay less in tax along the way, but then they start learning that money can make money. Now, maybe just not real estate. Now, maybe they put something somewhere and the money's making money. And there's a moment in time when the money making money and the equity in their outside investments starts to grow faster than what they make out of the business. And it hits them. Now, hopefully they ran into somebody like you, they ran into a podcast, they ran into a friend at the golf cart, fishing, whatever I just said. But it's usually by accident that they run in and then they suddenly hit. The ones that don't run great, healthy businesses dependent upon themselves, but they never develop outside assets that grow in value, and they never focus on the growth of the value in the business because they thought it was the goose that always laid the golden eggs. Well, unfortunately, it's laying golden eggs because they're in it. And like you would say, the next piece is when they realize their involvement that drives greater revenue is actually killing their value.
Along that line, then, these individuals, these business owners who are moving up line, upstream in terms of net worth, in terms of satisfaction, et cetera, they have families. In fact, at the very beginning, you said that we're both married outside our league. We know each other's spouses, and
Yes.
We've been blessed. But how does the family unit play in these decisions to start looking outside the business, leveraging perhaps real estate or alternative type of investments? How does that family dynamic play into this particular decision?
Often you hear people talk about the choice that you have as a mate is very determinative about your future success. Both of us have spouses that are kind enough to let us do our batshit crazy stuff that we do.
Right.
They tolerate our dedication to our business. The early years where it was all about it, and that it ate up a lot of our personal time. Within that, then, business owners start to have a mindset that they need to take care of their family. When they do so, the expectation of what taking care of means is either a huge drag early that you can't achieve success because there's such a drag happening to you financially in your personal life, or you're so conservative early that it squeezes so tight that you can't learn how to spend later. I will tell you of the success that I see of first generational wealth, where somebody's creating something from nothing. They're so financially conservative early on that they have a hard time spending later. But that conservative nature that they run their business in, the conservative nature they do their personal finances, allows you to dump money back in the business to grow it. And then when it's too much, it allows you to invest. If you have a personal spend that always meets or slightly exceeds your business income, you can never put money back in, and you can never buy passive income assets, and you're not concentrated on growth. So that mindset that you and my dad had that drove the be careful, spend less than what you make, pay yourself first, starts to hit an entrepreneur with, I'm going to squeeze how much I spend in my business and how much I spend in myself personally to develop security.
I want to talk about taxes, but before we get there, oftentimes we see this business owner who's trying to straddle the fence, so to speak, figure out how much time I spend in business, how much money do I pull out of the business and deploy into the family, into life experiences, etc. They end up being viewed as they're weighing this balancing game that you were just articulating. They end up being viewed as pompous, prideful, curmudgeons, various types of an angst, if you will, in the ethos. Sometimes by family, sometimes by friends, sometimes by employees. What do you see the actual personality type? What is at the heart of this individual who's trying to weigh all these things that you were just articulating? What do you see as ultimately their driving force on what is really within them? I love the word used as curmudgeons. Sometimes they look at them as curmudgeons, but I want to expound on that because I love the way you define this.
As they're going through it, so you and I are the same guy, the same entrepreneur. We think that way. It's how we build our business, how we build our families. If I was to take, we onboard about 50 of these individuals a year that have made the $20 to $200 million business, about 50 of those a year, and we have a sample size of about 750. So I have an opinion based on sample size. And I can tell you the characteristics I've noticed. If it's self-made, if somebody created something from nothing, or the first generation down that is very concerned about building on it, the common characteristics are exactly what you said. They're such servant leaders that in their mind, they're constantly worried about how am I going to take care of the family? How am I going to run the business? If three things go wrong in a row, do I have enough acorns stored in a tree to get us over the hump? And they've had moments of their career where they came really close to it all evaporating, but nobody knew. They kept it their own secret. They didn't want anybody to lose confidence in them. They pushed through, they persevered. And because they almost lost it, they're in the mood of putting acorns in trees and they hide them. In fact, most entrepreneurs do not let their spouse and their family know how much there is, because if there was, they'd say, why don't you slow down? We don't need it anymore. We're fine. So they constantly say, you don't realize how close it is. So it's funny, even when they get to the point of DecaMillionaire status, that habit stays. So somebody discovers, hey, I know there's extra there. I saw this. A, the entrepreneur loves what they do, and they don't want anybody to tell them to slow down. They love what they do. And B, they know if three bad things happen in a row, all the cash flow could change and their buffer isn't big enough. And they start developing this outside buffer, equity in real estate, cash on hand, to be the buffer to allow them to serve their family well in a downtime. Then they get their first downtime and they've got some extra stuff, extra assets, and they realize in a downtime is where fortunes are made. Because when a downtime and the cost of assets, buildings, businesses drop, they've got dry powder, they acquire it at too high of an interest rate, but they acquire it. They wait till it goes up, interest rates drop, they refinance or they buy for cash, and suddenly they tripled their net worth. They do it the first time and they look around like that equity of property I talked about. They look around and say, well, that was kind of cool. Let me do that again. Now, I will tell you, there are a bunch of 20 and 30-year-olds that are now seeing entrepreneurship as a way to make a living. Go build a business, let it grow, and sell it. That did not exist for all the entrepreneurs that I knew. The ones over 40, it was perseverance and it was driven hard. And the idea of growing out of your garage and selling in 5 years is not the way they did it. They persevered through decades of this.
Yeah, I think it's intriguing over our generations. You've played this game a little bit longer than I have, but even through my almost 30 years of being a business owner and watching it, we were raised on hard work, pulling assets out, creating lateral income streams that when the business takes that hiccup, not if, when it does.
Yes, it does.
As you said, dry powder we can bring in and keep our team employed, keep our customer service, et cetera, throughout the trials. You know, one of the things, though, that Joe, and I know I'm coming right to your wheelhouse, and friends, let me say this right off the bat. Joe is a tax attorney, but nothing we're fixing to talk about is legal advice. Let me just put that out there right off the bat. Okay. So, Joe, I know the type of training you work in whenever you're educating other attorneys, CPAs, financial advisors around taxes. And that individual that we are describing, that you're doing so eloquently, describing this somebody who's trying to push forward, not out of need, but out of desire, because they just want to see what they can achieve and live their best life and be true to themselves in this vision they have in their heart. Whenever they start actually driving their business forward, maybe that first success point, maybe when they do see their net worth triple because of that real estate holding, et cetera, now they're introduced to uncle. Maybe they met uncle for the first time, but now uncle comes in, and uncle is a very expensive player in this game of wealth. So I know I don't want to get into specifics in terms of strategies today. I don't want to dive to that level granular, but how important is tax planning for business owners to know, to consider, to take action upon?
Let's assume for a moment that a business has been around long enough to where it's generating enough income and we've crushed the expenses to where there's a profit. And let's say the profit is more than is needed for income to the owner to take care of mortgage, kids, college, and all those things. Suddenly, they get to the point where they're going to have to pay income taxes on the excess of what they earn over what they spend. They know that for the first 100 or 200,000, they're going to pay taxes because they need the net cash. Two things happen. One, they go to their account and they say, oh my God, that tax bill was too much. How do I not pay this next year? They're usually 1 year behind. And then the accountant says, well, it's easy. Let's spend more money. So let's buy more shovels. And the owner says, wait a minute. I got to buy more shovels. So I've got an extra $200,000. You want me to buy $200,000 of shovels so I pay no more taxes, but I don't have any more money to spend. I don't need the shovels. So they buy them the first year. The second year, they say, okay, let's buy another expense that's not a capital expense, so it's not depreciated. Let's buy rakes. And the owner says, what, to put next to my shovels? Had I taken the extra $200,000, I paid the highest amount of tax because I'm in a high tax state and federal government. I paid 100, I've got 100 left. That's 100 I could spend. I don't need $200,000 worth of shovels or rakes, which is an exaggeration. But they start to realize, yes, I can start doing improvements in my business that I need, but could I do some sort of tax planning rather than tax reporting? And they start finding out that their investments, like in their real estate, the income that comes from it is covered by depreciation, so they pay less in tax. And they start to get that bug even more. Wait a minute, I've got an asset that does that. They start to realize that in their investments, some investments have a different tax treatment than others. They can choose tax-advantaged assets. They can choose alternative investments where they get tax credits instead of a tax deduction. And they start realizing they can do that. The next piece, you start to realize there are things I can do in my business to store dry powder that the government will give me a deduction for that I have as egg cord to use later. So that's the third level of what happens. And they start getting the bug, and often they go to and I hear this all the time, they go to their professionals and they say, I'm tired of coming to you with my ideas. Will you please come to me rather than reporting how much I pay, what I can do to change this? Now, once you nail the first set of what we talked about, realizing what the assets need to do, the fourth item in there was protection from lawsuits and protection of taxation. And now you catapult, or you really hockey stick that line up even faster.
But you gave a progression there. And so what I often see, and I don't want to skim over this because I think the way you just laid that out is so brilliantly. I've never heard the shovels and rake example, but we see it as professional advisors, specifically from the well-intentioned advisors that don't deal with this particular strategy. But there's a logic here to move forward. And what we're seeing, or what I'm perceiving, Joe, maybe please correct me if I'm wrong. What I'm perceiving now through the interweb and through modern social media is we have these harebrained ideas, some of which have some merit, some which don't, but they have to fall in a strategy to where you almost like building a cake. You got to put the first layer on before you put the icing, and the second layer before the icing. Oftentimes the business owner, they'll get this harebrained idea about pick some crazy strategy out there, and which is, 4 or 5 or 6 layers deep into a tax strategy. And they run to their accountant or attorney or tax attorney who's well-intentioned, and they're truthful in their example of, hey, yes, don't need to do that. We need to bring you back to this point. Where's the very first step So that these entrepreneurs who are saying, man, Joe, you mean there's ways that I can now shelter some income and not pay federal taxes or state taxes or F&E taxes on this income without me having to go out and buy rakes and shovels? What's step number one before we get to all these radical ideas, which are often shared on the interweb that entrepreneurs like to grab onto like junkyard dogs?
On that 4-asset motive idea that we talked about, motive number 1 was take care of my family. Right. Motive number 2 was develop extra income to buy passive income assets. Motive number 3, I need to make sure my asset is growing in value. How do I do that? Once you nail those, motive number 4 is how do I be protected from lawsuits and how do I be protected from taxes? So let's assume we're in the protected from taxes mode.
Well, just for clarity, Joe, whenever you say once you nail those, does that mean that once you've achieved the assets outside that are going to make the extra income, or now that you have the desire to buy assets outside the business? Motive number 2, for example, does that mean they actually have to take action on that, or they just have the motive to take action on that?
Anytime that you can see something for the first time, an entrepreneur can start to do their research. Entrepreneurs do their research before they do action. So as soon as you're developing extra income, you should be looking for which assets to buy. Also, how do I cause growth? And how do I do it in an asset protection way from taxes and lawsuits? So yes, it's as soon as there's enough extra income to buy passive income assets, now you have to look down those other 3 avenues. Once an owner does that, the first bugaboo is income tax. Income tax. It's the highest level of tax. It's taxes on my income, whether it's dividend income, my income that I'm taking as a business owner in payroll, because you have to take some of that stuff too. And you find, oh, wow, that's the highest. How do I reduce it? The next tax that most owners bump into is this capital gains tax. I buy a thing, it grows in value. I don't pay any tax on the grow in value unless I sell it. Now you find out, like in real estate, but if I sell it and I don't touch the growth, I can reinvest it and not pay the tax. Ain't that cool? So you start looking, their first tax strategy is usually some reduction of income tax because maybe a research and development credit or because of a credit they get in their state. The second one is how to delay a capital gains tax. That's the next one they get their arms around. The problem that exists in our industries, Justin, is that I call it all roads lead to Rome. Depending on the advisor they get in front of, that advisor limits the amount they tell the business owner based on all roads leading to Rome, in that that's how that advisor gets paid. Or that's what the advisor learned. So, and then they get other advisors that build roads to Rome. So if you're in front of a real estate person, a life insurance person, an assets under management person, an alternate investment person, and a CPA, an attorney, they're going to talk about the strategies in their wheelhouse that pay them, which is the frustration because the business owner is looking for a wider palette. They want to understand their options and choose amongst the options, but somebody has limited it without telling them, I've limited your choices because that's how I get paid.
What do they do then? If they run across this, because you and I see it all the time. You and I teach advisors. Of all the ones you just talked about, and we hear the way in which they go to their clients, and we're like, we're scratching our head. I'm trying to pull whatever hair I have left in my head out and say, friends, it's not just this one solution. Your business owner has other options which can actually accelerate their dreams faster. So what is the business owner to do?
By all means. So the business owner has some work to do, just like they do in their business. If they were to research another line of business, another customer chain, another supply chain, they would go around and talk to lots of people, and they would start gathering data before they made the choice. They just wouldn't leap because everything's at risk. With this plan, your growth, your future DecaMillionaire status is at risk. So you have to talk to friends in your business that seem to have hit that. You need to talk to multiple advisors and ask them. And business owners have a junkyard dog sense about them. They can sit in that junkyard and they can stand up on a forest. They can see somebody walking across the street and they get a sense of that person over the dust, the oil burning in the can, the oil dripping, the truck that goes by. They got a gut instinct about that person and they can tell. That instinct will serve them well if they turn that on when they're searching for advisors. Is that advisor talking too much? Do they not answer the question, but they give lots of language? When they ask, what's the downside? They don't have a downside. Every financial legal strategy out there, every tax strategy has a downside and upside. If you don't hear the downside, grab your wallet, walk out of the room. So it's a matter of having these conversations and finding a good person. Somebody that you feel will give you the straight conversation, whether they're getting compensated or not. Unfortunately, that's not somebody who's fresh in the business because somebody limited that person. So if you've got somebody fresh in one of their trades, you want an old dog with them too that has a wider set. And then you're asking, the other one is, how well do they play in the sandbox with others? A great CPA works with a great tax attorney, works with a great financial advisor, works with a great real estate person. You don't hear them bad-mouthing the other professions. They say, there are some people in this profession are great, we need to get them at the table. And then the business owner develops their President Lincoln cabinet of adversaries. Their cabinet of adversaries. There are people from different disciplines at the same table that have the discussion in front of the entrepreneur so the entrepreneur can make a choice. Entrepreneurs are fabulous, quick, decisive decision makers when they have all the facts. And the only way to get the facts is to invite the adversaries to the same table.
So I want to get even more, a little bit more granular, because I think what you're talking about is the heart of the problem that I hear. I know you hear it, which is why you're speaking so passionate about this. Joe, we've got literally tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of business owners listening to us right now.
Yep.
That are of every stripe and flavor. We've got some that I know personally that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, close to $1 billion in net worth. We have some just getting started who are aspiring to be DecaMillionaires because they want to continue this lifestyle they're on, this journey they're on. And the frustration that I hear when I'm speaking at an event or whenever I'm talking through our social media to business owners is, that's all good, Joe. I know I need perhaps an attorney, a CPA, a financial advisor, an insurance agent, a real estate agent, a broker, a banker, all these different people. Who do I go to?
Yes.
Who do I go to? And what they've seen, and you and I have had many conversations around this off the record, what they've experienced is I'll pick on the financial advisor community because I was one for over 20 years, as I run to an advisor, as you just said, and they're trying to sell them this particular widget because that's what they've been told they had to do in order to get paid. And they push them into this product or something, and now all of a sudden they find out that the CPA or the attorney says, why'd you do that? And they go back and forth and they get this like termite in a yo-yo feeling. So if we break it down just to the granular level, and we're talking to our brothers and sisters who are business owners, who do they look for first or second?
Sure. So I have this conversation in the book, Motive. There's choosing and getting chosen. First. Business owners need to remember they're choosing their advisors and their advisors are getting chosen. But their advisors are choosing clients and the advisors are getting chosen. And there's this 4 different dynamic thing going on. The table is set. When a business owner sits in a golf cart and somebody says, hi, I'm Sam. What do you do? Sam is really saying, can I explain what I do? When they drive up to a place where they exist, that they have their business, even when you hide your wealth, when you don't disclose it, people discover. So most business owners don't know when they sat at the bat mitzvah, somebody asked to be seated next to them. When they sat at the wedding, when they were at the social event. So first, realize the game is afoot. And I don't mind. That's business. That's great. Just know that it's happening. Next, everyone believes that you need to find the smartest and best, and therefore your life will be good. And if you talk to hundreds of my successful clients, they would tell you that the quality of the relationship with their lead advisor, and then their subsequent advisor, especially the lead one, the quality of the relationship with that advisor is more indicative of financial success than the return on the investment or the investment type. Because just like in their business, when things go down or things go up, they concentrate. They capitalize on the up without taking too much risk because it's going to go back down. And when it goes down, they get on top of it right away. If you don't have a good relationship with your advisor, you're not getting that timed response during the drop or during the up. My advisor talks me off the ledge when I want to do stupid things and tolerates that I'm going to buy all kinds of stuff when the rest of the market's not. My wife tolerates that when we're doing well, I make hay while the sun shines, and when we're doing poorly, I double down to create more success. I have a great relationship with my wife who understands that, like you, and I have a great relationship with my lead advisors. So first, yes, you have to go into the stadium where they all have the good licenses, and you did your research and they said, this person's smart and that person does it well, and I have good history with that one. But then you have to find a human being that you want to talk to when things are down or things are up as soon as possible, who will have a frank, direct conversation. I want my advisor to push me back. I am not a financial advisor. I'm in this game. I see more than most people do, if not the vast majority. And I want people that push me, but I want to have the discussion. I don't abdicate. I'm an entrepreneur. I don't abdicate to anybody. I want the data. I want to have the discussion, and I want to make a choice. So where business owners suffer is when they find a smart person and they abdicate and they say, what do you think you should do? And they let it happen. I always say, if your advisor can't explain in 3 sentences or less a simple way to understand what they're asking you to do, they don't understand their stuff as well as they think they do.
Well
so
said.
First, you have to find a lead advisor, somebody who, with a humble and smart and bright nature, will herd the kittens, will help explain, and then help get these sub-advisors. I don't care who your lead is, whether it's your attorney, your accountant, your financial advisor, whoever that is that has the time to take your calls and make sure that you go through this, who holds everybody else accountable. And the next one is for the entrepreneur to hold their business advisors as accountable as they hold their business employees.
How do they do that?
Well, we all have the skill. In our business, we have alphas in our business, we have worker bees, and we have the people in the middle. And for the most part, entrepreneurs surround themselves with people smarter than them that get a lot of stuff done. Same theory with your advisors. You still hold joint meetings. You still hold people accountable to each other. You develop a metrics. As soon as you whiff it's doing really well, you say, great, where are we doing well? Where are we not? Let's capitalize on the well. And as soon as you whiff a downturn, you're on it right now saying, how do we prepare ourselves for this? What do we do now? Was this foreseeable? And if it was, what in my portfolio should we adjust because we missed it? Was it not foreseeable, but possible? What do we need to adjust because of it? Or was it a rogue wave? Nobody could have known. And once we determine that, what are we doing from here on out? Never blame your advisors for what happened, because they won't come to you. If you scream at your child if they spill milk, they'll never tell you they spilled the milk. Instead, and I say child because you love your children, like you should love your advisors. Always embrace your advisor when they say something went wrong. The answer should be, what went wrong? How do we fix it? What are we learning from it? What are we doing next? Now, if they do something wrong every week, and every week they didn't learn the lesson, new advisor. But my portfolio, your portfolio, Justin, there are things today that are winning and losing. Some of which were predictable, some not, but maybe, and some are rogue waves. The pandemic was a rogue wave. None of us could predict it. But I'll tell you what, my entrepreneurs that had egg cords stored up high, that rogue wave didn't affect them. In fact, they doubled their net worth in 5 years.
So, Joe, whenever we talk about success, and I'm interested because, you're working with a bigger sampling than many, many professionals that I know of very successful individuals. And when we talk about success, I have to believe that there's 2 things that these successful individuals also consider, and that is their health or their fitness and their faith. And we talk about their family, we spoke about mine and your spouses and how they support us. And most of the successful most successful entrepreneurs and business owners, they have those family members, maybe not a significant other or spouse, but they have those family members which support them during the hard times. But as I'm getting older, I'm interested to see what your perception is around this idea of faith and or fitness, or specifically around these successful individuals. How do they view those 2 words?
I can't tell you the number of entrepreneurs that I've spoken with who said, I've got to deal with God. He understands what I'm doing, and therefore I don't have to go to church this week. And it's because they're diving so hard in to take care of. Most entrepreneurs in the early years are solely focused on taking care of their family with almost a feeling of panic. And they are taking care of this business and generating it because it's how they take care of their family. And people see it as prioritizing what they do, and they're actually prioritizing their family, but this is how they do it. They reach a certain level of either age or success that they realize their personal machine, if it breaks their body, they can't serve the family. So they now have to balance, how do I take care of others, discounting that whole world of people, the 98, 99% of people that say you can't take care of others until you take care of yourself. Entrepreneurs say, you must have enjoyed driving on the road that my friends and I created. Because they say, I take care of others first. Often or always putting themselves second. They either have a health event, they watch a friend have a health event, or they have an emotional event, and they suddenly realize, if I don't take care of the vessel that is me, it all blows up. So suddenly, health becomes important, either because of an event or watching another event, not because they're being selfish, but because they've got to take care of the machine that's them to take care of others. And then there's the moment when they realize the worst moments that they've had and the best moments they've had, the decision they made was when they had an immense amount of clarity. And they're constantly in search of calm clarity. And they bump into other entrepreneurs that develop calm clarity, and they say, where'd you get it? And the entrepreneur looks over and smiles and laughs and says, you know what? I realized I needed to drink more water. I needed to eat regularly and not eat crud. And I needed to walk at least 30 minutes every hour a day. And during the walk, I needed to not be on the phone. So I felt better. I was no longer tired of being tired. My nerves were less frayed. I showed up better with my kids. I showed up better with my wife. And then once I got calm, I realized that the calmest people around me that made the business decisions had their health in check, but they also found their faith. Whether it was spirituality, whether it was climbing the top of a mountain, sitting on a rock, whether it was Buddhism, Catholicism, Judaism, Muslim, whatever it was, they found their best decisions were made in peace, that they can't be in the shower all day. The shower was the place that nobody interrupted them, and they had their brilliant insights. And they found they could have shower moments other places, where they say all the time, the 98% of the world that says you have to take care of yourself before you take care of others, they find that comment to be complete crud. Because they are othership people. They take care of others first. Until they worry about their own machine not being able to do it, and then they take care of their health, and they take care of their spirituality. And health is simple. Drink water. Your brain doesn't do well without it. Eat regularly and eat stuff that's good for you that doesn't make you feel slow. Sleep. What a concept. Sleep. And if you do those things, you show up better for your kids, you show up better for your spouse, you show up better for business decisions. And then they get calm enough, they notice somebody else, they say, when I work out, it kind of feels like when I'm in the shower. You know, I bet there's another way to find that. And oddly, spirituality, religion, God, faith, get you there.
Joe, we've covered a lot, man. And I'm just now listening to the whole breadth of knowledge that you've been sharing. And I can hear our seasoned entrepreneurs and business owners over there like saying, he's right. He's right. Like I've been shaking my head. Yes, I've been there. But I can also see this younger generation who is constantly being talked about of this hustle culture, if you will, that you've got to burn the candle at both ends. So I want to bring this to a close here with one simple question. You've got that individual out here who is everything that you and I have been. They're doing the best they know how to do. And we know each other's stories. We know it very well.
Yeah.
They're doing the best they know how to do. And they're listening to this show and they're listening to a seasoned expert like you who work with hundreds of very successful business owners. They're like, man, I want that peace. I want that prosperity for others around me because it's always others. Those what we see are successful are always others. What's that one piece of advice that you give that young man, young woman out there who's maybe just starting to break through? What's that one piece of advice you say, hey, friend, listen to this?
Every day at a time that you're quiet, either before you go to bed or when you wake up, so it's regimented. Take and journal 3 things. What surprised me today? Number 2, what do I wish I would have known? And from now on, I will. What surprised me? What do I wish I would have known? And from now on, I will. And if you schedule yourself, this doesn't take a lot of time. This is 3 to 10 minutes. If you schedule yourself the same time every day, sitting when you're brushing your teeth, when you're sitting in the bathroom, when you first get out of bed, when you're whatever it is, if you make the same one, you would develop a habit that sets your brain in the right path. If I was to add a fourth, what am I grateful for? Unfortunately, Dan Sullivan will share with you that who's a great entrepreneur coach. Most of us suffer from both the horizon. No matter how fast we run, the horizon moves with us, so we never feel like we get there. And then as we climb up the ladder, we're always looking ahead, never behind. So we never give ourselves credit for what we've done. And hence we're hard on ourselves. If we can realize the horizon's moving with us, but at least turn back and see the ground we've covered, or the ladder that we're climbing up, turn around and see the rungs we've already hit, it will increase our confidence. Oddly, our confidence gets increased when we know what we're thankful for and how we show up for our children, our spouse, our employees, and our clients is better when we feel good about ourselves. And a ritual of those 3 plus the 1 will give it to you every day. Look, everybody, if you're a business owner, you know how to nail business. You don't need me to talk supply chain and employees and HR and motivation and the 72 other things that everyone's talked to you about. It is not selfish to give yourself 10 minutes a day to keep your mindset to support everybody else.
Joe, you pour into our business owners on a regular basis, and I just have the privilege of knowing you as a friend, and I'm grateful for coming on today and sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend. Bye, everybody.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Joe Strazzeri. We're going to put links to his particular company in the show notes. And if you happen to fall within that band of 20 million and up in terms of family business, this firm, his group of businesses can vastly help you and your family. I've seen the work personally. So take it from the East Tennessean that my buddy Joe knows what he's doing. Friends, reaching a DecaMillionaire status is not for the faint of heart. You poured your life into impacting others. What we're talking about each and every week are these nuggets that Joe's bringing directly from the front lines, from people who's achieved this status. And as he just said, the 74 other things that so many people want to worry about, yes, they're important. You're going to know that. But man, what an insightful conversation. May I challenge you to grab one thing from today's conversation and go ahead and implement it in your life. It can change your life for the rest of your life. Until next time, y'all make it a great day.